Hello, I'm going to show you how to operate our GASERA 1. The device always does a self-test when the power is turned on. During that self-test, the device will check all the valves and communication between the cards. And now the device has already done the self-test sufficiently and the login menu appears in the UI. From the UI, you can select the user. You can configure different user levels depending on which are the permissions that the user is allowed. Now we are using the administrator level. The rotating button, you can select the user and password and click in. In the UI, you have three panels: measure, results and setup. When you turn on the device after the self-test, the cell is warming up, and sometimes there can be these cell warming up warnings, but now the cell has already warmed and the device is ready to be used. Let's start from the setup menu. First thing is the instrument status. Here you can see the device serial number, IP address, total idle time, which means how many hours the device has been on, and the cell temperature and the storage uses. The device is connected to the internet via Ethernet cable. Next thing is the measurement task. From the measurement task, you can see all the measurement tasks. From production, there's always default task and flush task. The default task has the task name, measurement type, which is normally normal, and then there's this background compensation measurement type, which is used in some devices. Measurement interval, which means that normally the normal iteration time for our device is between 35 seconds and 2.5 minutes. But with this measurement interval, you can select the time in seconds when you want to start a new measurement, like if you want to have a measurement point once in 5 minutes. Then there's the gas inlet port. There's two inlets in the back panel. Usually the sample 1 in is used. The gas components are selected. Usually all the components are selected because that's usually how the device has been configured. But if there is a need to select only two or few components, the water always needs to be measured, and then you can select, for example, we can select nitrous oxide, water, carbon dioxide and methane. Then there's the target pressure, which is for the pulse device, it's always 850 millibars. It can be differ in the laser devices. The pressure can be 200 millibars or 350 millibars. Flush time bypass means the time that the gas is flowing through the bypass, and the flush time cell is the time that the pump is pumping the gas through the cell, and cell flush cycles means the amount of flushes that the pump does. Next up is the alarms. You can create an alarm for each component. When the concentration limit exceeded, the color of the rotating button will change to indicate an alarm. The user accounts in our device, there's normally the administrator level, which can do everything in the UI and the setup. But you can either insert the password or create user levels which are more limited. The general info, the serial number comes from the factory, but you can also name your device. And when you gather the data, default data display mode is normal, and you can also select the moving average. The y-axis limits are either auto scale or you can select a minimum and maximum. Power cut handling means that if there's a power outage and your device is measuring during that power outage, then when the electricity comes back, the device will automatically continue the measurement that was cut off. And then there's the target pressure, and the target pressure should never be changed because the calibrations in the factory setup are done with the selected target pressure. Channels and sits for the pulse unit, this means that these are the times in seconds that is used to measure each optical filter. These are set in the calibration and should never be changed. In the network settings, there's DHCP, which means that the device will look for the first available IP address. If you unselect this, then the IP address for the device is constant. Under the remote control, there's options for external connections. Our device can be operated through AK protocol. The clock is set for the time zone. Display, you can enable the screensaver, which means that after the set idle time, the screensaver will appear in the screen. Language can be selected from the language settings. Then there's the unit settings, the length in meters, pressure in millibars, temperature in Celsius, and in the concentration you can select parts per million or milligrams per cubic meters. From the gas components, you can see all the components calibrated in the device, and from this view you can also select if you want the component to be shown in the measurement. For example, if you only want to see water and one other component, you can hide the other components. Utilities means the multipoint sampler. This device doesn't have the multipoint sampler connected, so it shows the multipoint sampler setup as gray. Software is the software versions installed in the device in our production. From the calibration, you can calibrate components starting from background and every component as individual. You can set the sample concentration in ppms, and after 10 points you can accept the calibration. From the support tools, there's the option to export service database. This is something that can be useful if there's an error or a problem with the device. Our support can help you the best if you send the measurement database and the debug logs. Usually, if the device is used with customer, the debug logs isn't enabled. Only in the diagnostic situations, if you want to find out what's the problem with the device, then the debug logs is enabled. Then the active errors. Now there's no active errors. And on the error log, you can see all the errors or messages that the device has encountered. There's mostly cell temperature low or source intensity low or source intensity high, source warming up, cell temperature low. These are all normal errors during the warm-up. And then there's the alarm log, which logs all the triggered alarms. Back to the UI. Now we can start a measurement. We can select a name for the measurement. For example, we can select A, B, C, and with a long press you can get out of the cell and then choose a measurement task. We can use default 2, which has all the GHG gases, and we can check from the edit tasks that there's all the components we wanted to measure. Everything seems to be in order, and we can start a measurement. First, the device does a 6 1-second long pumps and then a pressure adjustment. Now the filter wheel is turning and the device is measuring all the optical filters. The measurement iteration lasts 35 to 2.5 minutes depending on how many gases are measured. And after the first measurement point, you can either select the concentration view, which shows all the components and concentrations, or the trend view, which shows the independent measurement points. And in the trend view, you can select only one show all components or only one, and by selecting the trace option you can see the value of the measurement point and the standard deviation. Now the device has been measuring for 5 minutes, and from the down right corner you can see that it's measuring its 6th iteration. You can select the trace option and see that the value of this 5th measurement point is 341 ppb, and the standard deviation for all the 5 measurement points is 11.7 ppb. Now we can stop the measurement by pressing the rotating button once for long. And now it's asking, are you sure you want to stop the measurement? And we select yes. Back to the UI. From the results menu you can check the measurement, and we just selected the measurement ABC, and it's showing us the same view as in the measurement. You have all the components and you can choose one of them by selecting the rotating button and show only, and you get the same view as during the measurement. If you want to save the measurement, you can select save to USB storage, which stores from the USB port, or you can use an external PC to conduct the measurements or exporting the data.